The fluorescent lights in the Phoenix Marketing Solutions conference room buzzed like angry wasps as I sat there, watching my career crumble in real time. 23 people around that polished mahogany table, colleagues I'd worked alongside for 4 years, grabbed coffee with, celebrated promotions with, and not one of them could meet my eyes. "Effective immediately! You're done here, Cassandra," Reginald Thornfield announced, his gravelly voice cutting through the uncomfortable silence like a rusty blade. The 60-year-old executive vice president didn't even look up from his tablet as he delivered the death blow to my professional life. His salt and pepper mustache twitched with what I could only describe as satisfaction. The Seattle rain hammered against the 42nd floor windows, creating a soundtrack that matched the storm brewing in my chest. I'd built the Morrison account from scratch, a $2.3 million contract that kept half our department employed. And here was Thornfield, taking credit for my work while simultaneously throwing me under the bus. "I'm sorry, what?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. Around the table, I caught glimpses of sympathetic faces. Darren from accounting looked genuinely shocked, and Melanie, my former work wife, was gripping her coffee cup so hard her knuckles had gone white. "Performance issues," Thornfield continued, finally looking up with those cold gray eyes that reminded me of dead fish. "Missing deadlines, client complaints. We can't afford to keep dead weight." Dead weight. The words hit me like a physical blow. I thought about the nights I'd stayed until midnight perfecting presentations, the weekends I'd sacrificed to meet impossible deadlines, the family dinners I'd missed to take client calls. Dead weight. "That's interesting," I said, standing up slowly. The chair scraped against the floor, the sound sharp and final. "Especially considering the Morrison presentation I submitted last week, the one that secured us the biggest contract in company history." Thornfield's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Around the table, a few heads turned his way, curiosity flickering in their expressions. But he recovered quickly, adjusting his expensive tie. "Probably cost more than my monthly rent. That project was a team effort, and frankly, your contribution was minimal." He gestured dismissively. "Security will escort you out. Your personal items will be mailed." The humiliation was suffocating. I could feel 23 pairs of eyes watching as Victor Castellanos from security appeared at the door, his apologetic expression doing nothing to soften the blow. Victor had always been kind to me. We'd bonded over our shared love of terrible reality TV shows during late-night shifts. "I'm sorry, Cassie," he whispered as we walked toward my desk. "This is really messed up." My workspace looked smaller somehow, more pathetic. 4 years of my life condensed into a small cubicle with a dying fern and photos of my sister Brianna's kids. I grabbed my personal laptop. Thank God I'd never turned over the password, and a few sentimental items, while Victor stood guard like a friendly prison warden. "You know this isn't right." Melanie appeared at my shoulder, her usually perfect blonde bob slightly disheveled. "Everyone knows you made that Morrison deal happen." "Apparently not everyone," I muttered, shoving my favorite coffee mug into my purse. It was ceramic with "World's Okayest Employee" printed on it, a gag gift from the office Christmas party that now felt prophetic. As Victor escorted me to the elevators, I caught sight of Thornfield through the glass walls of his corner office. He was on his phone, probably already spinning the narrative of my departure to save face. But something else caught my attention, a woman's silhouette in the reflection of his window, someone who definitely wasn't his wife, Eleanor. The elevator doors closed with a soft ding, sealing my fate. 42 floors down, and with each passing level, my shock transformed into something else entirely. Something colder, more calculating. By the time I reached the lobby, walking past the marble walls and expensive artwork that I'd helped pay for with my dedication and results, I'd made a decision. Reginald Thornfield wanted to play dirty? Fine. But he'd chosen the wrong person to underestimate. The Seattle drizzle hit my face as I stepped onto Pine Street, and for the first time in hours I smiled. It wasn't a particularly nice smile. 3 days after my public humiliation, I was camped out at Grounds for Coffee, a little place 2 blocks from Phoenix Marketing Solutions with perfect sight lines to the office building. The barista, a 20-something with purple hair named Luna, had already memorized my order. Double shot vanilla latte with an extra shot of determination. "You're here again," she observed, sliding the steaming cup across the counter. "Let me guess, corporate espionage?" "Something like that," I replied, choosing a table by the window. Luna had no idea how close to the truth she was. I'd spent the last 72 hours doing what I did best: research. Only this time, instead of analyzing market trends and consumer behavior, I was studying Reginald Thornfield. And what I discovered was interesting. My laptop screen glowed with spreadsheets that would make an IRS auditor weep with joy. Thornfield's expense reports, which I'd accessed using my still-active backup credentials, funny how IT always forgot about those, painted a fascinating picture. Weekly client dinners at Le Bernardin that lasted until midnight. Weekend business trips to locations where we had no clients. Hotel suites booked for one but charged for two occupants. But the real gold mine was something I discovered by accident: Thornfield's Dropbox account, connected to his work email, which was synced to his phone, which was connected to the office Wi-Fi, which I could still access because Harold from IT was more interested in his fantasy football league than cybersecurity protocols. The man was sloppy, arrogant, and apparently having a very active affair. "Excuse me, are you Cassandra Winters?" I looked up to find a woman in her 30s, impeccably dressed in a charcoal business suit that probably cost more than my car. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her brown eyes held the sharp intelligence of someone who missed nothing. "Depends on who's asking," I said, closing my laptop slightly. "Vivian Marshall." She extended a perfectly manicured hand. "I represent several individuals who might have mutual interests with you regarding Phoenix Marketing Solutions." I studied her face, looking for tells. Corporate lawyer, definitely. The kind who charged $800 an hour and earned every penny. "I'm not sure what you mean." Vivian smiled. The expression was professional, but held an edge. "May I sit? I think you'll find our conversation illuminating." Against my better judgment, I nodded toward the empty chair. Vivian sat with the fluid grace of someone accustomed to boardrooms and power plays. "I represent Mrs. Eleanor Thornfield," she said without preamble, "and several former employees of Phoenix Marketing who found themselves in similar situations to yours." The coffee suddenly tasted bitter. Eleanor Thornfield, Reginald's wife of 28 years, mother to his 3 children, and according to my research, heir to a textile fortune that dwarfed Phoenix Marketing's annual revenue. "I'm not sure I follow," I said carefully. Vivian opened her briefcase and withdrew a tablet. With a few swipes, she pulled up what looked like a legal document. Wrongful termination suits. 3 filed in the past 18 months, all young women, all high performers who were dismissed after. She paused meaningfully, refusing certain advances. My stomach dropped. "Are you saying Thornfield?" "I'm saying my client has become aware of certain patterns in her husband's professional behavior. And she's not pleased." Vivian's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "The question is, Ms. Winters, how far are you willing to go to get justice?" I thought about that conference room, about the 23 faces that watched my humiliation, about 4 years of 60-hour weeks and missed family dinners and sacrificed relationships, all thrown away so Reginald Thornfield could protect his fragile ego and wandering libido. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. Vivian's tablet screen changed, showing surveillance photos that made my own amateur detective work look like child's play. Thornfield entering a hotel with a woman who definitely wasn't his wife. Thornfield's company credit card being used for jewelry purchases that never made it home. Thornfield in compromising positions that would make his country club membership very uncomfortable. "Mrs. Thornfield is filing for divorce," Vivian said quietly. "But she wants to ensure that certain professional improprieties come to light as well. The board of directors needs to understand exactly who they've been trusting with their company." I stared at the photos, my heart racing. This wasn't just about getting my job back anymore. This was about bringing down a man who'd built his career on the backs of people like me who thought his position made him untouchable. "There's a board meeting next Friday," I said slowly. "Emergency session to discuss the Morrison account transition." "Is that so?" Vivian's eyebrows rose with interest. "That's so. And I happen to know that Thornfield is planning to present my work as his own." Again, we sat in silence for a moment, the weight of conspiracy settling between us like morning fog. Outside, Seattle continued its eternal drizzle, washing the city clean while we planned to expose its dirty secrets. "Ms. Winters," Vivian said finally, "I think this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership. The Phoenix Marketing Solutions, building had never looked more intimidating as I approached it the following Thursday evening. The security guard, night shift Tommy Hendricks, looked up from his crossword puzzle with surprise as I badged in. "Cassie, I thought you were terminated, yeah. But I've got some personal items to collect from my old client files," I said, holding up my laptop bag. "Victor said it was okay if I came after hours. Less awkward for everyone." Tommy nodded sympathetically. He'd worked security here for 12 years and had seen plenty of good people get shown the door. "Take your time, hon. Building's pretty empty except for the cleaning crew." The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like ascending to my own execution, but this time I was the one holding the axe. My hands trembled slightly as I swiped my access card. Vivian's contact in IT had reactivated it for exactly 24 hours, just long enough for what we had planned. Thornfield's corner office was dark, but his computer was still on. The man's arrogance was truly breathtaking. He'd left his presentation open on the screen. My Morrison client analysis rebranded with his name in 60-point font. Strategic market penetration. A Thornfield initiative. I wanted to vomit. Instead, I plugged in my USB drive and began uploading the real surprise for tomorrow's board meeting. Vivian's private investigator had been thorough. Every hotel receipt, every compromising photo, every company policy violation carefully cataloged and ready for presentation. But the piece de resistance was something I'd discovered myself. Thornfield's personal email account, synced to his work computer, containing 2 years' worth of correspondence with his current mistress, Scarlett Vega from the company's PR department. My phone buzzed with a text from Melanie. "Board meeting moved to 9 a.m. tomorrow. Emergency session." Thornfield's been bragging about his revolutionary presentation all week. Perfect timing. I finished the upload and was about to leave when I heard voices in the hallway. My heart hammered against my ribs as I quickly shut down the computer and ducked behind Thornfield's massive desk. "Told you we need to be more careful," a woman's voice, breathy and nervous. "Relax, darling. The building's empty. Besides, after tomorrow's presentation, I'll be in line for Pemberton's position when he retires next year." Thornfield's voice was thick with satisfaction and something else, alcohol, probably from whatever expensive restaurant he'd been impressing clients at tonight. The office door opened, and through the crack beneath the desk, I saw 2 pairs of legs enter. Expensive Italian leather shoes that I recognized as Thornfield's and red Louboutin heels that could only belong to Scarlett Vega. "I still can't believe you fired that Winters girl in front of everyone," Scarlett said, and I heard the soft thud of her purse hitting the desk above my head. Wasn't she the one who actually landed the Morrison account? Details, sweetheart. Leadership means knowing when to take credit. There was the sound of ice clinking in a glass. Thornfield kept a fully stocked bar card in his office for client meetings. Besides, she was getting too comfortable, asking too many questions about my expenses. Better to cut the problem off at the head. My jaw clenched so hard I was surprised my teeth didn't crack. "Speaking of expenses," Scarlett's voice took on a coy tone, "that jewelry you bought me last week was gorgeous, though I still think it's risky using the company card for personal purchases. What's the point of being in charge if you can't enjoy the perks?" Thornfield laughed, and I heard the unmistakable sound of kissing. "Besides, who's going to question me? I'm untouchable, baby. Absolutely untouchable. Untouchable." The word echoed in my mind as I crouched there, hidden beneath his desk like some kind of corporate cockroach. We'd see about that. They stayed for another 20 minutes, during which I learned more about Thornfield's anatomy than I ever wanted to know, before finally leaving for what sounded like his apartment downtown. I waited another 10 minutes before emerging from my hiding spot, my legs cramped and my resolve harder than Seattle concrete in winter. As I gathered my things and prepared to leave, I noticed something glinting on the floor beneath his bar cart. A cufflink, expensive looking with the initials RT in gold script. It must have fallen during his passionate encounter with Scarlett. I picked it up, studying the weight of it in my palm. Evidence. Not that we need it any more, but sometimes the universe provides exactly what you need when you need it. My phone buzzed with another message, this one from Vivian. "Everything in position for tomorrow. Remember, act surprised when the presentation begins. We want this to look organic." I smiled, pocketing the cufflink. "Organic. Sure. Like a landslide. As I left Phoenix Marketing Solutions for what I hoped would be the last time as a victim rather than a victor, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: genuine excitement for a work presentation. Tomorrow, Reginald Thornfield was going to learn that some people can't be dismissed as easily as he thought. The Phoenix Marketing Solutions boardroom had never been so quiet. 14 of the company's most powerful executives sat around that familiar mahogany table, their expressions ranging from confusion to outright shock. The presentation screen still glowed with the last slide I'd watched Thornfield display, except instead of his quarterly projections, it now showed a high-resolution photograph of him in Scarlet Vega in what could charitably be described as a compromising position. There seems to be some technical difficulty," Thornfield stammered, frantically clicking his remote. His face had gone the color of old newspaper, and sweat beaded on his forehead despite the building's aggressive air conditioning. Board Chairman Augustus Pemberton, a 70-year-old silver-haired patriarch who'd built this company from nothing, leaned back in his chair with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Oh, I don't think there's any technical difficulty at all, Reginald. Please continue." The screen changed to the next slide in my carefully curated presentation: expense reports showing Thornfield's client dinners that corresponded exactly with Scarlett's work schedule. Then hotel receipts. Then jewelry purchases that coincidentally matched the pieces Scarlett had been photographed wearing at company events. Someone's hacked the system," Thornfield said, his voice cracking like a teenager's. "This is clearly a malicious attack on my character." "Your character?" The voice cut through the boardroom like a scalpel. Vivian Marshall stood in the doorway, immaculate as always in her tailored black suit. "I think your character has been quite accurately represented, Mr. Thornfield." Behind her walked Eleanor Thornfield, and I had to admit the woman had presence. Even at 55, she moved with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted her place in the world. Her silver hair was styled in a perfect chignon, and her navy Chanel suit probably cost more than most people's cars. "Eleanor!" Thornfield's voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "Protecting my assets," she replied coolly, taking a seat at the table as if she belonged there. Which, given that her family trust owned 12% of Phoenix Marketing Solutions, she absolutely did. "Ms. Marshall!" Vivian moved to the presentation remote, clicking to the next slide with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you're seeing is the result of a 6-month investigation into systematic workplace harassment, financial impropriety, and gross misuse of company resources by your executive vice president." The room erupted in murmurs. I watched faces around the table, some shocked, others calculating, a few who looked like they were trying to figure out how to distance themselves from the disaster unfolding before them. "Mr. Pemberton," Vivian continued, "I have here signed affidavits from 4 former Phoenix marketing employees, all young women, all high performers, all terminated shortly after refusing Mr. Thornfield's advances." She placed a thick folder on the table in front of the chairman. "I also have documentation of approximately $127,000 in misappropriated company funds over the past 18 months, used for personal entertainment, gifts for his mistress, and hotel rooms for extramarital encounters." Thornfield lurched to his feet, his chair spinning behind him. "This is a setup. This is that Winters girl. She's been trying to sabotage me ever since. Since you fired her for refusing to sleep with you." The voice came from the back of the room, and everyone turned to see me, standing in the doorway. I'd been waiting outside, watching through the glass walls as Vivian executed our plan with surgical precision. But hearing my name come out of Thornfield's mouth with such venom, I couldn't help but make my entrance. "Cassandra," Chairman Pemberton said, his voice carefully neutral, "I wasn't aware you were involved in this presentation." "Oh, I'm very involved, Mr. Pemberton." I walked into the room, my heels clicking on the polished floor. "See, when Mr. Thornfield fired me last week, he claimed it was for performance issues. But what he didn't mention was that those performance issues started after I refused his invitation to discuss my career prospects over champagne in his apartment." The silence in the room was deafening. "You could have heard a stock price drop." "That's a lie," Thornfield snarled, but his voice lacked conviction. Around the table, I saw board members exchanging glances, putting pieces together. "Is it?" I pulled out my phone and pressed play. Thornfield's own voice filled the room, crystal clear. What's the point of being in charge if you can't enjoy the perks? Besides, who's going to question me? I'm untouchable, baby. Absolutely untouchable. I'd recorded everything from under his desk the night before, and hearing his arrogance played back to the room of his peers was more satisfying than any revenge fantasy I'd ever imagined. Eleanor Thornfield looked at her husband with an expression of pure disgust. Untouchable, she repeated quietly. How interesting. Chairman Pemberton stood slowly, his movements deliberate and final. Reginald Thornfield, effective immediately, you are suspended from all duties pending a full investigation. Security will escort you from the premises. You can't do this to me. Thornfield's composure finally cracked completely. I built the Morrison account. I brought in millions for this company. No, I said, my voice cutting through his protests. I built the Morrison account. You just put your name on my work. Again, Victor Castellanos appeared in the doorway, his expression professionally neutral, but his eyes holding just a hint of satisfaction. Mr. Thornfield, if you'd come with me, please. As Thornfield was escorted out the same walk of shame he'd forced me to take just 8 days earlier, Eleanor turned to Chairman Pemberton. Augustus, I assume Phoenix Marketing will be conducting a thorough review of its hiring and termination practices? Absolutely, Eleanor. And Mrs. He looked at me questioningly. Ms. Winters, I supplied. Ms. Winters, I believe we have some serious discussions about wrongful termination and your future with this company. I looked around the boardroom at the faces of people who had watched my humiliation in silence, at the empty chair where Thornfield had sat just minutes before, at Vivian Marshall, who was packing up her presentation materials with the satisfaction of a job well done. Actually, Mr. Pemberton, I said, I think I'd like to discuss starting my own consulting firm. I have some ideas about companies that might benefit from a thorough review of their workplace culture and executive accountability. Eleanor Thornfield smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her all morning. Ms. Winters, I think my family trust might be very interested in investing in that kind of venture. As I walked out of Phoenix Marketing Solutions for the final time, I passed Thornfield in the lobby, flanked by security, and looking like a man who just watched his entire world collapse. Our eyes met for just a moment, and I saw the exact moment he realized that he wasn't untouchable after all. Some people, it turns out, are just better at playing the long game. 3 months later, Winters Corporate Consulting had its first major client, Phoenix Marketing Solutions, hired to implement comprehensive workplace harassment prevention policies. Reginald Thornfield was facing criminal charges for embezzlement and multiple civil suits for sexual harassment. Eleanor Thornfield had filed for divorce and was reportedly quite happy in her newly single status. And me, I was finally doing the work I'd always wanted to do, helping companies be better, fairer, and more accountable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting ahead.